Commander Jack Reed stood at the viewport of Orbital Station Unity, watching Earth spin below. 50 years had passed since first contact, and humanity had gained the stars, but lost something vital in return. Jack pressed his palm against the cool glass. At 55, with gray creeping into his dark hair, he was one of the few who remembered a time before the aliens arrived. Commander Reed, the Galactic Assembly inspectors have docked. Lieutenant Davis approached with a tablet. They're requesting your presence. Jack nodded, straightening his blue diplomatic uniform. No weapons allowed, not even ceremonial ones. That was Rule 17 of the peace protocols. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes. When the assembly ships first appeared over Earth's major cities in 2073, humanity had feared war. Instead, they offered membership in a galactic community of over 30 species. The catch: Earth had to follow the rules, hundreds of them, all detailed in the peace protocols. Jack walked through the station's white corridors, nodding to crew members. Most were too young to question the protocols. They had grown up with alien technology, alien trade, and alien restrictions. The meeting room doors slid open. 3 aliens waited inside. The tallest was Ambassador Kelf, a 7-foot blue-skinned being with 4 arms. Beside him stood 2 wreck inspectors, short gray creatures with large eyes that missed nothing. Commander Reed, Kelf said, his translator making his rumbling voice sound almost human. We appreciate your punctuality. Jack forced a smile. The assembly schedule is our schedule, Ambassador. Indeed. Kelf gestured to the star map on the wall screen. We're here for the quarterly inspection of Earth's orbital platforms. Standard procedure. Standard procedure that had never changed in 50 years. Jack knew what they were looking for. Any sign that humans were building ships larger than allowed, or developing weapons beyond police-grade stunners. Of course. Jack activated his tablet. I've prepared all the documentation. The inspection took 3 hours. The MREC scanned every inch of the station, checked every manifest, and questioned random crew members. Jack stayed with them, answering questions and keeping his face neutral, even when they asked the same things they always did. Your power consumption has increased 3.2% since our last visit, one REC noted, large eyes blinking slowly. Earth's population has grown, Jack explained. More people means more stations. Growth is concerning, the MREC replied. When they finally left, Jack returned to his office and locked the door. He pulled out a small device from his desk, a signal jammer not on any official inventory, a gift from a sympathetic alien trader who understood that sometimes privacy mattered. Jack activated his computer and opened a classified file. The document had been buried in Earth's government archives for decades. Anthropological Assessment of Human Species, Galactic Security Briefing. He had found it by accident during a routine data transfer, and what he read had changed everything he believed about Earth's place in the galaxy. The file was clear. The peace protocols hadn't been designed as universal rules. They had been crafted specifically to limit humans after alien researchers studied Earth's history and concluded that humanity was dangerously unpredictable and possessed concerning innovation patterns that could destabilize galactic peace. Jack closed the file as his communication panel chimed. A priority message from Mars Colony was coming through. Commander Reed here, he answered. The face that appeared belonged to Governor Martin of Mars Colony. Her expression was grim, her eyes red from crying. Jack, we've been hit. The Outpost 3 is gone. Everyone. Her voice broke. Everyone is dead. Jack felt his chest tighten. What happened? They're calling them pirates, but we know better. It was a Krell warship. They hit us without warning, claimed we had expanded beyond approved boundaries. That's impossible, Jack said. The Assembly approved that expansion 2 years ago. Tell that to the families of 87 dead colonists, Martin snapped. I filed a formal complaint with the Assembly. They're sending investigators in 2 weeks. After the call ended, Jack sat in silence. 2 weeks. By then, any evidence would be gone. It was the third attack on human outposts in 6 months, and each time, the assembly response was the same. Slow, bureaucratic, and ultimately useless. Jack brought up another file on his screen. The schematics for Earth's defensive ships. Small patrol vessels with minimal weapons, designed for police actions against human criminals. Nothing that could stand against a real warship. His private communicator buzzed. A message from an old friend. "Jack, I saw the news about Mars. We need to talk. Not on official channels. Meet me at the old place tomorrow. Emma." Dr. Emma Wilson had been Earth's top weapons designer before contact. After the peace protocols, she had been reassigned to safety equipment research. She had never forgiven the assembly for clipping her wings. The next day, Jack took a shuttle to Earth, claiming a routine inspection. Emma was waiting at their usual spot, a quiet corner of a park in what had once been Boston. At 60, Emma's face showed her years, but her eyes still burned with the same intensity Jack remembered from their military days. "They're not going to help us, are they?" she asked without preamble. Jack shook his head. "The assembly is sending investigators in 2 weeks." Emma laughed bitterly. "By which time the Krell will be long gone. This isn't random, Jack. These attacks are targeted. Someone's testing us." "Testing what?" "Our patience. Our compliance." Emma handed him a small data chip. "I've been monitoring assembly communications. Don't ask how. They're watching us, Jack, waiting to see if we break the rules and defend ourselves properly. If we do, they'll have their excuse to put us under direct control. And if we don't, then they'll keep pushing until they've taken everything." Emma's voice hardened. The peace protocols were never about peace. They're about control. Jack looked at the chip in his hand. "What are you suggesting?" Emma leaned closer. "I have ideas, Jack. Designs that would work. Things they would never expect, because they think we've forgotten how to fight." "The assembly monitors everything we build," Jack said. "Every piece of metal, every power source." Emma smiled, a fierce expression that reminded Jack why she had been feared and respected in equal measure. "Who said anything about using their approved materials? We just need to think differently." She pointed to the sky. "There's an old mining facility in the asteroid belt, officially abandoned. Unofficially, it could be a start." Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a spark of hope mixed with the thrill of defiance. "You're talking about breaking every rule in the protocols," he said slowly. "They made the rules to stop us," Emma replied. "I say we build a warship anyway." Jack looked up at the sky, where stars were just becoming visible as evening fell. Somewhere up there, humanity's future hung in the balance. "Who else do we need?" he asked. Emma's smile widened. "I have a list." The abandoned mining facility hung silently among the asteroids, its exterior dark and lifeless. From a distance, it looked like just another piece of space junk, exactly as Jack and Emma had planned. 3 weeks after their meeting on Earth, Jack stood in what had once been the facility's control room. The air tasted stale despite the recyclers working overtime. Around him, screens flickered to life as Emma powered up systems that had been dormant for years. "Welcome to our new shipyard," Emma said with a grim smile. "Not much to look at, but the assembly hasn't bothered with this place in over a decade." Jack nodded. "What about the team?" "They'll be here tomorrow. I've brought them in on separate transports, all with different cover stories." Emma pulled up a display showing 4 incoming ships. Each one thinks they're here for a classified research project, which isn't exactly a lie. Jack studied the personnel files Emma had compiled. 4 names stood out. Tom Miller, a former space racer with 27 wins before the assembly banned dangerous velocity competitions. His ship handling skills were legendary, and he had been working as a cargo pilot since the van. Marcus Lee, an AI programmer who had pushed the boundaries of what the assembly considered acceptable machine intelligence. His work had been shut down 3 years ago. Diane Foster, a materials scientist specializing in tech the assembly classified as dual use, meaning it could have both civilian and military applications. "You've been busy," Jack said, impressed. "I've had 50 years to think about this," Emma replied. 50 years of watching them box us in. I started making lists a long time ago." The next day, as the new team members arrived, Jack watched their faces carefully. Each showed the same mix of emotions: surprise, excitement, and fear when they learned the true nature of the project. "You're asking us to commit treason," Marcus said bluntly during their first full meeting. The young programmer looked around the room. "Not against Earth, but against the assembly. They find out, and we're not just going to prison. Our whole planet will suffer." "Our whole planet is already suffering," Tom Miller cut in. The pilot was older than Jack had expected, with lines carved deep into his face. "We're dying in slow motion. Those attacks on the colonies aren't random. I've flown those routes. Someone's testing our defenses. Or lack of them," Diane Foster added quietly. The materials scientist had barely spoken until now. "The question isn't whether we should build this ship. It's how we'll hide it from their sensors. They monitor every piece of metal we mine, every power source we activate." Emma smiled and activated a holographic display in the center of the room. A strange ship design appeared, unlike anything Jack had ever seen in Earth's fleet or the assemblies. "That's why we're not going to use standard materials," Emma explained. "The assembly thinks in terms of metal hulls, crystal computers, plasma drives. We're going to think differently." She zoomed in on sections of the design. Biological components, grown from modified Earth organisms, mixed with mechanical systems so primitive the aliens consider them too inefficient to monitor. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes widening. "Grown ship components. Is that even possible?" "Theoretically," Diane said, studying the designs. "We'd need to modify some deep-sea organisms. Their pressure adaptations would work in vacuum. But the power requirements—" "That's where you come in," Emma told her. "We need materials that produce energy but don't register on standard scans." For the next several days, the team worked around the clock, refining Emma's initial designs. They named their ship Phoenix, a symbol of rebirth from the ashes of Earth's military past. The first major breakthrough came when Marcus discovered that the assembly sensor network had a blind spot. It was calibrated to detect high-energy signatures and refined metals, but largely ignored biological matter and simple chemical reactions. "They're so advanced that they've forgotten the basics," he explained, showing the team a simulation. "They're looking for fusion reactions and quantum processors. They'd never expect us to use something as primitive as chemical batteries or steam power." "Steam?" Tom looked skeptical. "In space. Not exactly traditional steam," Diane corrected. "But the principle is similar. Heat exchange creating pressure. It's inefficient by their standards. But it's invisible to their scanners," Jack finished. "How soon can we start building?" "We've already started," Emma said. "The biological components are growing in Lab 3. But we have another problem." She pulled up a report showing assembly ship movements near the asteroid belt. "They're increasing patrols in this sector. Standard procedure says they shouldn't come near us. But nothing about this is standard," Jack finished. "We need to accelerate our timeline." That night, as the others slept, Jack stood alone in the facility's observation dome, looking out at the stars. Building the Phoenix would take months, even with their best efforts. Earth might not have months. His communicator chimed with an encrypted message from Earth. Governor Martin's face appeared, her expression even more grim than before. "Another attack," she said without preamble. "The research outpost on Europa. 23 dead." Jack felt cold. Assembly response. The usual. Investigating. No evidence of who's responsible. Martin's voice hardened. "But one of our ships got a partial scan this time. It matches a Krell warship design. Not pirates. Military." After the call ended, Jack returned to the main control room and found Emma already there, working on new designs. "You heard?" he asked. She nodded without looking up. "We need weapons, Jack, not just engines and hulls. The assembly will detect energy weapons the moment we test them." Emma's smile was cold. "Who said anything about energy weapons? I'm thinking about something older. Something they've forgotten about because it's too primitive for their advanced minds." She showed him a design for what looked like an ancient naval cannon, but with modifications Jack didn't understand. "Kinetic weapons," Emma explained. "Projectiles. No energy signature until they hit. And by then, it's too late." "Will they work against assembly shields?" "They'll have to," Emma said simply. 3 days later, as construction of the Phoenix's core systems began in earnest, the team faced their first crisis. An assembly patrol ship changed course, heading directly for their sector. "Routine survey," they're saying, Marcus reported, monitoring their communications. "But the timing feels wrong." "How close will they come?" Jack asked. "Too close. Their sensors will detect our power usage unless we shut everything down." The team worked frantically to hide their project. Biological components were moved to shielded chambers. Power systems were shut down. For 26 hours, they drifted in darkness and silence as the assembly ship passed by, scanning the asteroid field. When it finally moved on, Jack called the team together. "They're suspicious," he told them. "We need to be more careful, but we also need to work faster." Tom looked at the partial hull of the Phoenix, barely visible in the dim emergency lighting. "She'll never be ready in time." "She has to be," Jack replied. "Because next time, they might not just be doing a flyby. Next time, they might come to shut us down for good." Emma stepped forward. "Then we'd better make sure our Phoenix can fly before that happens, even if she's not complete." As the team returned to work with renewed purpose, Jack wondered if they were being naive. 5 people building a warship to challenge the most powerful organization in the galaxy. It seemed impossible. But as he watched Emma calibrating a weapon system that shouldn't exist according to assembly rules, Jack remembered something his grandfather had told him long ago. The most dangerous person isn't the strongest. It's the one who refuses to play by the rules everyone else accepts. The Phoenix was taking shape. Whether it would fly or fight remained to be seen. 2 months into the project, the Phoenix was taking shape. The main chamber of the abandoned mining facility had been transformed into an improvised shipyard. What had once been empty space now held the growing skeleton of a vessel unlike any humans had built before. Jack stood on a walkway above the construction area, watching his team at work. The Phoenix didn't look like a warship, at least not one the assembly would recognize. Its hull curved like a living thing, because in many ways it was. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Emma joined him on the walkway. Dark circles under her eyes showed her exhaustion, but her voice held pride. "Different," Jack replied. "Will she fly?" "She'll do more than fly." Emma handed him a tablet showing the latest test results. The biological hull is growing faster than expected. It's already bonding with the mechanical components. Below them, Diane worked with a team of drones, carefully guiding the growth of the hull using nutrient solutions and carefully calibrated light. The outer skin of the Phoenix looked almost like whale blubber, but was actually a modified form of deep-sea bacteria combined with coral structures, designed to survive the vacuum of space. "Any word from Marcus?" Jack asked. Emma's expression darkened. "That's why I came to find you. He's picked up unusual communication traffic. Assembly ships are moving in this sector again. Routine patrol." "No, they're looking for something." Emma lowered her voice. "Or someone." Jack's communicator chimed. Tom's face appeared on the small screen, his expression tense. "We have a problem with the drive test," the pilot said without preamble. "Can you come to Section 7? In the depths of the facility, Section 7 had been converted into an engine testing area. The room was heavily shielded to prevent energy signatures from leaking out. Inside, Tom and Marcus stood before a strange contraption, a hybrid of biological matter and mechanical parts that looked more like a heart than an engine. "What happened?" Jack asked. "We fired up the test model," Tom explained. "It worked too well. The power signature spiked before the shielding fully engaged." Marcus nodded grimly. "For about 3 seconds, we lit up like a beacon. Anyone looking in this direction, with standard scanning equipment, would have seen it." "Did you shut it down?" Emma asked, joining them. "Immediately," Tom confirmed. "But it might be too late." Jack made a quick decision. "Marcus, monitor all assembly communications. Tom, prepare emergency evacuation protocols. Emma, where are we with weapons?" "The main kinetic launcher is operational," Emma replied. "But we've only manufactured a dozen projectiles." "Make them count," Jack said. "Diane needs to accelerate the whole growth. If we have to move, we move, ready or not." Over the next week, the team worked around the clock. The Phoenix grew rapidly, its biological components responding to Diane's treatments. By the 8th day, the outer hull was complete. A strange, mottled surface that shifted colors slightly as they watched, adapting to the background radiation of space. "Remarkable," Diane said, studying the sample under a microscope. "It's already developing protection against radiation I didn't program it for. It's evolving." "Is that safe?" Jack asked. "As safe as anything we're doing here," Diane replied with a small smile. The weapons systems came next. Emma's design was ingenious, a launcher that used chemical reactions to propel specially designed projectiles. No energy signature until impact, as she had promised. The ship's interior systems followed, a strange mix of biological neural pathways and old-style mechanical controls. "No standard computer systems," Marcus explained as he worked. "Nothing the assembly can hack or track. We're using biological processing combined with mechanical backup, old tech and new tech together in ways they would never think to look for." On the 18th day, disaster nearly struck. One of the biological components in the hull farm mutated unexpectedly, causing a small explosion that damaged part of the facility's outer wall. The team managed to seal the breach, but not before their power signature fluctuated again. "They definitely saw that," Marcus confirmed, monitoring assembly communications. "2 patrol ships have changed course. They'll be here in 3 days." Jack called an emergency meeting. "Options. We run," Tom suggested. "Abandon the facility, find somewhere else, and leave the Phoenix." Emma shook her head. "Not possible. She's rooted here now. The biological components can't be moved without killing them." "Then we hide her," Diane said. "Make the facility look abandoned again. Power down everything but life support." "They'll still scan us," Marcus pointed out. "Standard procedure after an energy anomaly." Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked up with a gleam in her eyes. "What if we give them something else to look at? A distraction." Her plan was daring. They would launch one of their supply ships with a modified power core, one designed to leak energy in a specific pattern. It would head away from the facility, drawing assembly attention while the Phoenix remained hidden. It almost worked. The supply ship launched on schedule, its power signature fluctuating wildly as programmed. The first assembly patrol ship changed course to follow it, just as Emma had predicted. But the second patrol split off, continuing toward the facility. "They're not buying it completely," Marcus reported. "Second patrol will be here in 18 hours. Jack made the call. "We launched the Phoenix. Now." "She's not ready," Emma protested. "The drive system is only at 60% capacity. Half the weapons aren't installed. The life support is functional." Jack finished for her. "Can she fly? Can she fight if she has to?" Emma hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes to both, but not for long, and not well." "Then we go." Jack turned to the team. "Prep for launch in 12 hours. Take only what's essential." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. The Phoenix was detached from its growth supports. Critical systems were transferred aboard. Supplies were loaded. Through it all, Jack felt a growing sense of finality. There would be no going back after this. 6 hours before the assembly patrol was due to arrive, the team gathered in what would be the Phoenix's control room. The space felt alive, walls pulsing gently with the biological components that helped power the ship. "She's ready," Emma said. "As ready as she can be." Tom took his place at the pilot's station, a strange organic chair that seemed to mold itself to his body as he sat. "Controls are responding. Main drive is online." Diane monitored the hull status from her station. "Outer skin is sealed and pressurized. She'll hold together." Marcus watched his communications display. "Assembly patrol is still on course. We have 5 hours and 43 minutes. Jack looked around at his team. 4 people who had risked everything for this moment, for a future where humanity could defend itself. He settled into the commander's chair, feeling the strange organic material adjust to his form. "Begin launch sequence," he ordered. "Let's see if our Phoenix can fly." The ship's drive system engaged with a sound unlike any conventional engine, a deep pulse that felt more like a heartbeat than machinery. The facility's outer doors, long unused, groaned as they slid open to reveal the star-filled blackness of space. The Phoenix moved forward, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as Tom adjusted to the unusual controls. As they cleared the facility, Jack looked back at what had been their home for months. It already looked abandoned again, just another piece of space debris floating among the asteroids. "Set course for the outer belt," Jack ordered. "Keep our signature as low as possible." "And if they spot us?" Tom asked. Jack exchanged a look with Emma. "Then we find out if all our work was worth it." As the Phoenix accelerated away from the facility, Jack felt something he hadn't experienced in 50 years, a fierce pride in human achievement, unbound by alien restrictions. Whatever happened next, they had already won a victory just by building the ship. The Phoenix had risen. Now they would see if it could fly and fight. For 3 days, the Phoenix drifted through the asteroid belt. The ship moved with surprising grace for something so hastily completed, slipping between floating rocks with ease. Tom's piloting skills proved invaluable as he learned to work with the unusual hybrid controls. "She responds differently than anything I've ever flown," Tom said, his hands moving lightly over the organic control panels. "It's like she anticipates what I want to do." "That's by design," Marcus explained from his station. "The biological neural pathways learn from your inputs. The more you fly her, the better she responds." Jack stood behind them, watching the main view screen. The asteroid belt provided good cover, but they couldn't hide here forever. Sooner or later, they would need to make a move. "Any word from Earth?" he asked. Marcus shook his head. "I've been monitoring all channels. Nothing official about us yet. But there's increased assembly activity throughout the system. They know something's happening." In the ship's engine room, Emma and Diane worked to improve the Phoenix's systems. The biological components continued to adapt and grow, sometimes in unexpected ways. The ship was evolving around them. "The hull is developing new protection layers," Diane reported during the evening briefing. "It's responding to the radiation and micrometeorite impacts by growing thicker in vulnerable areas." "What about weapons?" Jack asked. "The main launcher is operational," Emma replied. "We have 18 projectiles manufactured now. The secondary systems need more work." On the 4th day, everything changed. Marcus burst into the small room Jack had claimed as his quarters, his face pale. "Assembly-wide alert," he said without preamble. "They're calling us pirates. There's a bounty for information leading to our capture." Jack followed him to the bridge, where the others had already gathered. On the main screen, an official assembly broadcast showed images of the Phoenix taken from long-range scanners. The images were blurry but recognizable. "This unregistered vessel is believed to be operated by human extremists," the announcement stated. All assembly members are warned that this ship is dangerous and potentially armed in violation of peace protocol regulations. They found us faster than I expected, Emma said quietly. What do we do now? Tom asked. Every ship in the system will be looking for us. Jack thought for a moment. We need more information. And we need allies. Allies? Diane looked skeptical. Who would help us against the entire assembly? Not everyone in the assembly agrees with the peace protocols, Jack replied. I spent years as a diplomat. I know there are factions, disagreements about how younger species should be treated. Jack turned to Marcus. Can you still access the diplomatic channels? Marcus nodded slowly. I think so. My clearance should still work if they haven't locked it down yet. Then send a message to Ambassador Kelth. He's always been flexible in his interpretation of the rules. 8 hours later, as the Phoenix hid in the shadow of a large asteroid, they received a response, not from Kelth, but from someone unexpected. My name is Trell, the alien said. Its image on the screen showed a slender insect-like being with large compound eyes. I am a science officer in the Assembly Research Division. Ambassador Kelth cannot help you, but I might be able to. Why would you help us? Jack asked. Because the peace protocols have become corrupt, Trell replied. They were created to prevent war, but they have become tools of control. Some of us have been watching this happen for decades. Trell's image flickered as the secure channel struggled to maintain connection. The attacks on your colonies were not random. They were tests. Tests for what? Emma asked, stepping forward. To see how humans would respond. If you fought back with unapproved weapons, it would justify placing Earth under direct control. If you did nothing. Trell's alien features were hard to read, but its voice conveyed sadness. Then it would prove humans could be controlled without resistance. Jack felt cold anger building inside him. Who authorized these tests? The Security Council, a small group of elder species who believe they alone should determine the galaxy's future. Trell paused. There will be another attack soon. Larger than before. On your lunar colony. After the transmission ended, the bridge was silent. Finally, Tom spoke. We have to warn Earth. They wouldn't believe us, Jack said. Not without proof. Then we get proof, Emma stated firmly. Trell mentioned a Security Council facility where these operations are planned. If we could access their records. You're talking about infiltrating an assembly military installation, Diane said, with one half-completed ship. Not infiltrating, Jack corrected. Not yet. First, we observe. Gather information. Marcus worked through the coordinates Trell had provided, plotting a course to a seemingly empty region of space near Jupiter's orbit. According to Trell, it concealed a classified assembly facility where military technologies were developed, despite the supposed galaxy-wide peace. The journey would take 3 days at their current power levels, 3 days during which they could be discovered at any moment. Jack ordered them to travel in short jumps, powering down between movements to avoid detection. On the second day, disaster struck. An assembly patrol detected their energy signature during a jump and immediately gave chase. The Phoenix fled deeper into the gas giant's radiation belts, areas most ships avoided. They're still following, Marcus reported tensely. 2 patrol ships, heavy weapons. Can we outrun them? Jack asked Tom. The pilot shook his head. Not with our drive at current capacity. We need more power. Emma looked up from her station. We could route emergency power to the drive, but it would mean taking life support to minimum levels. Do it, Jack ordered. As Emma rerouted power, the ship's lights dimmed. The temperature began to drop immediately, but the Phoenix surged forward, accelerating faster than the assembly ships could match. They're falling behind, Marcus called out. But they're still tracking us. Options? Jack asked. Jupiter's moon Io, Tom suggested. Heavy volcanic activity. If we skim the surface, the radiation and sulfur plumes might mask our signature. It was a desperate move, but they had no choice. Tom guided the Phoenix into a steep dive toward the yellow-orange moon, its surface covered with active volcanoes. As they approached, the ship shuddered. "Hull temperature rising," Diane warned. "We're not rated for this kind of environment." To everyone's surprise, the biological components of the ship began to adapt before their eyes. The hull changed color, developing a reflective quality that helped disperse the heat. The ship continued to shake, but held together. "They've lost us," Marcus announced finally. "Their sensors can't penetrate the volcanic plumes." Jack ordered them to maintain position in the shadow of a massive eruption. For 6 hours, they drifted, conserving power and watching as the assembly ships searched in vain before finally departing. When they were gone, Jack called the team together. "We need a new plan. They're looking for us now. We can't get near that facility without being detected." Emma had been quiet, thinking. Now she looked up with determination in her eyes. "We don't need to get near it. We need to get them to come to us." "How?" Jack asked. "We give them what they want," Emma said. "We attack the ships that have been targeting our colonies." "That's exactly what they expect us to do," Diane protested. "Yes," Emma agreed. "But they expect us to fail. They don't know what the Phoenix can do." Jack considered the plan. It was risky, perhaps suicidal, but they were running out of options. "Set course for the Jupiter Patrol Zone," he ordered Tom. "Let's show the assembly what happens when you back humans into a corner." As the Phoenix moved out from behind Ao's volcanic shield, Jack felt the weight of his decision. They were about to reveal themselves not as observers but as combatants. There would be no going back. "Ready weapons," he told Emma. "Let's see if your designs work as well in practice as they do in theory." The Phoenix accelerated, its strange hybrid heart pulsing with increasing power. The hunt had begun. The Phoenix moved through space with purpose, its unusual design making it appear almost alive against the starry background. On the bridge, Jack stood watching as the main screen showed their target. A Krell warship patrolling near the outer edges of Jupiter's moons. "That's one of the ships that attacked the Mars colony," Marcus confirmed, studying the sensor readings. "Same energy signature." "Weapons status?" Jack asked. "Main launcher ready," Emma replied from her station. "All projectiles loaded and targeting systems online." "What's our plan exactly?" Diane asked, her voice tense. "We can't defeat the entire assembly fleet." "We don't need to," Jack said. "We just need proof that the assembly is violating its own peace protocols. If we can capture the Krell ship's data core, we'll have records of who ordered the attacks on our colonies." Tom's hands moved over the controls, guiding the Phoenix on an intercept course. They'd spotted us. They're changing direction to engage. The Krell ship was larger than the Phoenix, its sleek design reflecting the advanced technology the assembly claimed was regulated by the peace protocols. As it approached, energy readings spiked. "They're charging weapons," Marcus warned. "Hold course," Jack ordered. "Let them fire first." The Krell ship didn't hesitate. A brilliant beam of energy lanced out, striking the Phoenix directly. The ship shuddered, but the biological hull absorbed the impact, spreading the energy across its surface before dispersing it. "Hull integrity at 92%, Diane reported with surprise. "It's working better than we expected. The biological components are adapting to the attack." "Our turn," Jack said. "Emma, target their propulsion systems. Disable, don't destroy." Emma activated the launcher. Unlike energy weapons, there was no visible beam or blast, just a small shudder as the kinetic projectile shot from the Phoenix at incredible speed. A moment later, the Krell ship jerked violently as the projectile struck its engine section. "Direct hit," Emma announced. "Their main drive is offline." The Krell ship, now drifting, fired again. This time the Phoenix was ready, maneuvering to minimize the impact. The biological hull glowed briefly where the energy hit, but held firm. "They're sending a distress call," Marcus reported. "Assembly reinforcements will be here in minutes." "Prepare boarding drones," Jack ordered. We need that data core. The Phoenix deployed small, automated drones that attached to the Krell ship's hull. Using cutting tools, they created an entry point and retrieved the ship's central data core, a crystal matrix containing all mission parameters and communications. Got it, Marcus said as the drones returned. Downloading now. The data confirmed everything Trell had told them. The attacks on human colonies had been authorized by the Assembly's Security Council as compliance tests. More disturbing, the data revealed plans for a massive strike against Earth's lunar colony, scheduled to begin in less than 10 hours. We have to warn Earth, Jack said. Marcus, can you get a message through? Before Marcus could answer, the ship's sensors detected multiple incoming vessels. Assembly response fleet, Tom reported. 5 ships, heavy weapons. They'll be in range in 2 minutes. Jack made a quick decision. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to get there before they do. The Phoenix's hybrid drive engaged, pushing the ship faster than any of them had expected. As they raced toward Earth, Emma and Diane worked to prepare a broadcast of the evidence they'd discovered. No one will believe us without proof, Emma said. We need to show everyone in the Assembly what their leaders have been doing. 6 hours later, the Phoenix approached Earth's orbital space. Already, they could see unusual activity around the moon. Assembly ships moving into attack positions. They're early, Jack said grimly. The attack has already started. Earth's defense forces, limited by the peace protocols to small patrol vessels, were scrambling to respond. But they were hopelessly outmatched by the Assembly warships. Open a channel to all frequencies, Jack ordered. Human and Assembly. Marcus looked up in surprise. All frequencies. That's against every rule in the book, Jack finished for him. That's the point. Do it. As the Phoenix entered lunar orbit, Marcus activated the ship's communication array, modified by Emma to broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously. The ship's unusual design suddenly made sense. It wasn't just a warship but a massive communication platform. This is Commander Jack Reed of Earth, Jack began, his voice transmitted to every ship, station, and comm system in range. The Assembly Security Council has been conducting illegal military operations against human colonies. We have proof. The data from the Krell ship began streaming across all channels, mission orders, attack plans, casualty projections. Everything the Assembly had tried to hide was now visible to everyone. The peace protocols were never meant to create peace, Jack continued. They were designed to control species the Assembly leaders considered threats. We built this ship to expose the truth. On the main screen, they could see the Assembly attack on the lunar colony faltering as ships received the broadcast. Confusion spread through their ranks as ship captains from different species realized they had been lied to by their own leaders. They're responding, Marcus reported. Multiple ships are demanding answers from the Security Council. The lead Assembly warship, however, was not confused. It changed course, heading directly for the Phoenix. They're targeting us, Tom warned. Weapons charged. Evasive maneuvers, Jack ordered. Emma, prepare to defend if necessary. But don't fire first. The Assembly flagship fired a massive energy blast. The Phoenix twisted away, but not fast enough. The shot grazed their hull, causing the ship to shake violently. Hull temperature critical, Diane reported. The biological components are struggling to adapt. Emma didn't wait for orders. She activated the main launcher, firing 3 projectiles in rapid succession. The first 2 struck the Assembly flagship's weapon systems, disabling them. The third hit their communications array. More ships incoming, Marcus called out. But they're not all Assembly. Look. The main screen showed a surprising sight. Ships of various designs were approaching. Vessels from younger species who, like humanity, had been restricted by the peace protocols. They had received the Phoenix's broadcast and were moving to support them. We're being hailed, Marcus said. It's from Earth Command. Governor Martin's face appeared on screen. Commander Reed, it seems you've been busy. Governor, Jack acknowledged. We found evidence of assembly plans to attack the lunar colony. We've received your transmission, Martin replied. So has every member species of the assembly. There's chaos in their ranks. The Security Council is being called to answer for their actions. In the days that followed, the truth spread throughout the galaxy. Many assembly species were shocked to learn how the peace protocols had been selectively enforced. A coalition of younger species, led by humanity, demanded reforms. The Phoenix became a symbol, not of war, but of the right to self-determination. Its unusual design, neither fully mechanical nor biological, represented a new path forward that the Assembly's rigid thinking had never considered. 1 month later, Jack stood in Earth's new embassy to the reformed Galactic Assembly. The peace protocols had been rewritten, allowing all species the right to defend themselves while still maintaining overall peace. Emma joined him by the window, looking out at the stars. Was it worth it? She asked. Jack thought of the Phoenix, now being studied by scientists from a dozen worlds. Its hybrid technology was already inspiring new approaches to ship design, medicine, and communication. We broke their rules, he said, and built something better in their place. Outside, the stars seemed brighter somehow. Humanity's future among them was no longer limited by someone else's rules. It was a future they would build themselves, in their own way. And that, Jack thought, was worth everything. The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from over 200 species filled the circular chamber, their attention focused on the holographic display floating in the center. The image showed a sleek, dark vessel with unusual angles that seemed to hurt the eyes if one looked too long. This human warship breaks at least 17 fundamental laws of physics, shouted Delegate Mox, their blue tentacles waving in agitation. We cannot allow such a thing to exist. At the edge of the hall, Captain James Miller of the United Earthship Paradox stood calmly, his weathered face showing no emotion. Beside him, Dr. Emma Reed fidgeted with the control pad in her hands, occasionally making adjustments to the hologram. Delegates of the Council, Miller said when the shouting died down. The UES paradox does not break any laws of physics. It simply bends them when needed. This statement caused another wave of outrage. The Council President, a tall being with silver skin named Trell, raised all 4 of his arms for quiet. Captain Miller, Trell said when silence returned, your species has been part of our galactic community for only 50 years. You must understand our concern. Every advanced civilization here built their technology on the same understanding of physical laws. What you claim to have done is impossible. Miller nodded politely. With respect, President Trell, humans have a different view of the word impossible. To us, it often just means not tried hard enough yet. Dr. Reed stepped forward. Unlike her captain, she looked nervous, her eyes darting around the room. But her voice was steady when she spoke. The paradox uses what we call reality distortion field technology, she explained. It creates a bubble around our ship where certain physical constants can be adjusted. Adjusted, a reptilian delegate hissed. Physics is not a setting to be changed. Reed pressed a button on her pad, and a hologram changed to show the inner workings of the ship. We discovered that the universe is more flexible than previously thought. What you call laws are more like strong suggestions. The council chamber erupted again. President Trell looked genuinely disturbed. 6 hours later, Miller and Reed returned to the Paradox, which sat in the council's special docking bay. The ship looked even stranger in person. Its hull seemed to shift slightly when not observed directly. That went exactly as expected, Miller said, rubbing his tired eyes. Reed sighed. They're afraid. I understand why. As they walked up the boarding ramp, the rest of the Paradox's senior crew waited for them. Lieutenant Tom Walker, the tactical officer, stepped forward first. How bad is it, Captain? He asked. Bad enough, Miller replied. They're voting tomorrow on whether to force us to dismantle the ship. Chief Engineer Marcus Bell snorted. They can try. I'd like to see them even understand how to take her apart. The ship's doctor, Ava Jones, shook her head. We knew this would happen. The Council has operated the same way for thousands of years. They don't like surprises. The group made their way to the bridge, a circular room with stations arranged around a central command chair. The walls displayed a view of space outside, as if they weren't there at all. Miller settled into his chair. The problem isn't that they don't understand our technology. The problem is they're afraid of what it means. Walker nodded. Their whole civilization is built on the idea that certain things are constant. We just proved they're not. Reed connected her pad to the main system. The paradox can ignore inertia when needed. It can adjust its mass. It can even bend light around itself in ways that shouldn't be possible. But we're still learning what it can do. And what it should do, Jones added quietly. Miller was about to respond when a loud alert sounded. Walker moved quickly to his station. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. High priority. Source? Miller asked. The Teller colony in the outer rim, Walker replied, his fingers moving over his controls. They're under attack. The Teller? Bell asked. They're one of the most peaceful species in the galaxy. Who would attack them? Walker's face grew grim. Signal describes the attackers as the darkness that consumes, whatever that means. Miller straightened in his chair. How far to Teller? About 7 light days at conventional drive, Reed answered. The captain's eyes narrowed. And with our drive? Reed hesitated. 2 hours, maybe less. But Captain, the Council expressly ordered us not to use the reality distortion field while in Council space. Miller stood up. Are there any Council ships near Teller that could help? Walker checked his readings. Nearest patrol is 3 days out at their top speed. Then we have no choice, Miller said. He pressed a button on his chair. All hands, prepare for departure. Engineering, ready the RD field. Bell grinned. Already warming up, Captain. Reed looked concerned. James, this could be seen as a direct violation of Council orders. They already want to take the ship apart. This will give them more reason. Miller's face hardened. I didn't join the fleet to follow rules while people die, Emma. Neither did you. She nodded slowly. No, I didn't. Good, Miller said. Walker, plot a course to Taylor. Bell, I want full power to the RD field. Dr. Jones, prepare medical for possible casualties. As the crew rushed to their stations, President Trell's voice came over the communication system. Captain Miller, our sensors detect your ship is powering up. You are ordered to remain docked until the Council reaches its decision. Miller pressed the response button. President Trell, we've received a distress call from Teller Colony. They're under attack and need immediate assistance. We are aware of the situation. Trell replied. A response fleet has been dispatched. Your fleet won't arrive for 3 days, Miller said. We can be there in 2 hours. There was a pause before Trell spoke again. By using your illegal technology? Absolutely not. You will remain docked. Miller looked around at his crew. They all nodded. I'm sorry, President, Miller said. But where I come from, we don't let people die when we can help. Paradox out. He cut the communication. Walker, get us out of here. Council security ships are moving to block our exit, Walker reported. Miller smiled. Dr. Reed, I believe this is where your adjustments come in handy. Reed returned the smile and moved to her station. Activating reality distortion field. Adjusting our mass to near zero. The ship hummed with power. Outside, Council security vessels moved to surround the paradox. Now, Walker, Miller ordered. The paradox shot forward, but instead of crashing into the blocking ships, it simply passed through them as if they weren't there. What just happened? Jones asked, gripping her chair. I adjusted our phase state, Reed explained, her hands dancing over controls. For a brief moment, we existed slightly out of sync with normal matter. Bell laughed from engineering. In simple terms, we became ghosts. As the paradox cleared the station, Reed activated the main drive. Space itself seemed to bend around the ship. Reality distortion field at full power, she reported. Bending space-time in 3, 2, 1. The stars outside streaked and vanished, replaced by a swirling tunnel of light. Miller settled back in his chair. Set a course for Teller. Let's show the galaxy what this impossible ship can really do. Behind them, the Council's outrage faded into the distance as the human warship that defied every law raced to answer a call for help. The UES paradox dropped out of its reality-distorted travel with a flash of light. The ship returned to normal space above the planet Tiller, a blue-green world with 3 small moons. But the beautiful view was spoiled by the scene of destruction unfolding before them. "My God," whispered Dr. Reed as she stared at the main screen. A dark, shifting cloud surrounded one of the orbital stations. The cloud wasn't smoke or gas. It seemed to be made of millions of tiny particles that moved with purpose. As they watched, the cloud enveloped a section of the station, and when it moved away, that section was simply gone. "What is that thing?" Lieutenant Walker asked, his fingers already moving across his tactical controls. Captain Miller leaned forward in his command chair. "Full scan, all frequencies, and open a channel to any survivors." The bridge crew worked quickly. Dr. Jones looked up from her medical scanner with concern. "Captain, I'm reading thousands of life signs on the station, but they're fading fast." Walker's face hardened as he studied his readings. "The cloud seems to be consuming both matter and energy. It's not just destroying the station, it's absorbing it." "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. The main screen flickered, showing the face of a Teller. The Teller were known for their calm nature, but this one looked terrified, their large eyes wide with fear. "This is Administrator Kell of Teller Station 1, the alien said, voice shaking. "Unknown ship, please identify." "Administrator, I'm Captain James Miller of the UES Paradox. We received your distress call and came to help." Relief washed over the Teller's face. "Humans, the Council said help would take days to arrive." "We have special technology," Miller said simply. "What is that cloud attacking you?" "We call it the Void Swarm," Kell explained. "It appeared 3 days ago at the edge of our system. It consumed 2 of our research vessels before we could even warn them. Then it came for the station." The transmission crackled with static. "Our weapons have no effect. 3 Council ships already tried to help. They were consumed too." Miller exchanged glances with his crew. "How many people on your station?" "Nearly 6,000, Kell replied. "We've evacuated some to the surface, but the swarm is blocking our main docking areas now. We're trapped." Miller nodded decisively. "We're going to help you. Stand by." When the transmission ended, Miller turned to his crew. "Options." Chief Engineer Bell spoke first. "If this thing eats energy, conventional weapons will just make it stronger. And mass readings suggest it's already consumed several thousand tons of matter," Walker added. "It's growing." Dr. Reed had been quiet, studying her data. Now she looked up with a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Captain, I think I know how we can fight this thing. The swarm seems to absorb matter and energy in a way that follows conventional physical laws. But our ship doesn't have to." Miller nodded. "Explain." "We can use the reality distortion field to change the rules," Reed said, moving to the main display. "If the swarm expects matter to behave one way, and we make it behave differently, we can confuse it," Miller finished, "or hurt it." "Exactly," Reed said. "I can modify our weapons to fire projectiles that change their properties mid-flight. The swarm won't be able to adapt." Bell grinned. "And I can rig the engines to emit energy at frequencies that shift randomly. It won't know what to absorb." "Do it," Miller ordered. "Walker, take us in closer, but maintain distance until weapons are ready." The Paradox moved toward the station, its unusual hull gleaming in the light of Teller's sun. On the station, the Teller watched with hope as the strange human ship approached. Inside the engine room, Bell and his team worked feverishly to modify the ship's systems. The reality distortion field generators hummed with power as Reed made her adjustments from the bridge. "Weapons ready, Captain," Walker reported after 15 tense minutes. "Modified torpedoes loaded. Reality distortion field configured for combat," Reed added. "But I should warn you, we've never used the field this way before. The strain on the ship could be significant." Miller nodded. "Noted. All hands. Battle stations." The crew secured themselves as the Paradox moved toward the void swarm. The dark cloud seemed to notice the ship approaching and separated from the station. A tendril of darkness reached toward them. "It's coming for us," Jones said quietly. "Fire first salvo," Miller ordered. Walker pressed the launch control. 3 torpedoes shot from the Paradox, heading straight for the approaching tendril. As they flew, the torpedoes began to change. Glowing, shifting, their very matter transforming from solid to energy and back again. The void swarm engulfed the first torpedo, but instead of being consumed, the torpedo's distorted matter caused a visible ripple through the cloud. The second and third torpedoes hit different sections with similar effects. "It's working," Walker shouted. "The swarm is recoiling." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Keep firing. Reed, increase distortion field around the ship. Let's show this thing what happens when it picks on humans." The battle that followed was unlike anything the watching teller had ever seen. The Paradox moved in impossible ways, sometimes seeming to be in multiple places at once. Its weapons fired energy that changed form mid-flight. When the swarm tried to adapt, the Paradox simply changed its approach. On the bridge, warning lights flashed as the ship groaned under the strain. "Hull stress at dangerous levels," Bell reported from engineering. "The reality distortion field is pushing our structural integrity to the limit. Can we hold together long enough to drive this thing away from the station?" Miller asked. Bell hesitated. "Maybe, but I can't promise we'll have enough power left to get home." Miller nodded grimly. "One problem at a time. Walker, target the main body of the swarm. Full salvo." The Paradox unleashed everything it had. Weapons that shouldn't exist fired energy that changed its nature every microsecond. The void swarm, faced with something it couldn't consume or understand, began to retreat. "It's working," Reed exclaimed. "The swarm is pulling back from the station." Indeed, the dark cloud was withdrawing, moving away from both the station and the Paradox. Soon, it had retreated to the edge of the system. "Keep sensors on it," Miller ordered. "Make sure it's really leaving." As the immediate danger passed, the crew allowed themselves to breathe again. Miller opened a channel to the station. "Administrator Kell, the swarm has retreated. What's your status?" Kell's face appeared, showing both relief and amazement. "Captain Miller, you've saved thousands of lives today. 3 Council warships couldn't even slow that thing down, yet your single ship drove it away. How is this possible?" Miller exchanged glances with Reed. "Let's just say we have a different approach to problem solving." As the Paradox helped the teller station with repairs and medical assistance, news of the battle spread quickly through Galactic Council channels. The human ship that had defied Council orders had also defied a threat that conventional ships couldn't handle. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, an ancient species took note of the unusual ship and its even more unusual methods. The humans had rediscovered something that had been hidden for millennia. Something that would change the galaxy forever. 3 days after the battle at Teller, the UES Paradox drifted in space, its engines running on minimal power. Emergency repairs had allowed the ship to move away from the Teller system, but not much farther. The reality distortion field had pushed the vessel beyond its design limits. Captain Miller stood in the engine room, where Chief Engineer Bell and his team worked tirelessly on repairs. Exposed wiring hung from ceiling panels, and the main generator hummed unevenly. "Give me some good news, Marcus," Miller said. Bell wiped sweat from his brow. "We've stabilized the main power grid. Life support is secure. but the reality distortion field generators. He shook his head. They're fried, Captain. We pushed them too hard. Miller nodded. So we're stuck with conventional drive. For now, Bell confirmed, which means we're 3 weeks from the nearest human outpost. As Miller was about to respond, Walker's voice came over the comm system. Captain to the bridge. Urgent. Miller hurried through the corridors of his damaged ship. When he arrived on the bridge, he found the crew staring at the main view screen. A ship had appeared near them, unlike any vessel Miller had ever seen. It was enormous, at least 10 times the size of the Paradox. Its shape reminded Miller of a giant leaf, with veins of light pulsing across its surface. It had no visible engines or weapons, yet it radiated power. Where did that come from? Miller asked. Our sensors should have detected it before it got this close. It just appeared, sir, Walker replied, his voice hushed with awe. 1 second it wasn't there, and the next. Dr. Reed was scanning the vessel, her eyes wide. Captain, that ship is using technology far beyond anything in the Galactic Council database. Its whole composition doesn't match any known material. Are they hailing us? Miller asked. No, sir. No communications at all. Miller straightened his uniform. Open a channel. When the communications officer nodded, Miller spoke clearly. This is Captain James Miller of the United Earth Ship Paradox. Please identify yourself. For a long moment, there was no response. Then, without warning, a beam of golden light shot from the alien vessel, enveloping the Paradox. Shields, Miller shouted. No effect, sir, Walker reported. The beam is passing right through our shields, but it's not causing any damage. Reed checked her readings. It appears to be a scan of some kind, extremely detailed. As suddenly as it had appeared, the beam vanished. The bridge crew waited tensely for what would happen next. A voice filled the bridge, not coming through the communication system, but seemingly from the air itself. Captain James Miller, we have been watching. You may call us the Elders. Miller exchanged glances with his officers. The Elders were considered a myth, an ancient species said to have withdrawn from galactic affairs millennia ago. What do you want with us? Miller asked. To speak, the voice replied. You and your science officer will come aboard our vessel. Reed's eyes widened. Us? Why? You have discovered what was hidden. You must learn the truth. Miller frowned. Why should we trust you? A pause then. We offer a gift of good faith. Another beam shot from the Elder ship, this one blue-white. It focused on the Paradox's engine section. Bell's surprised voice came over the comm. Captain, the reality distortion field generators. They're repairing themselves. Reed checked her console in amazement. The damage is being reversed at the molecular level. This technology is incredible. Miller made his decision. Dr. Reed and I will come aboard. Lieutenant Walker, you have command until we return. Walker looked worried. Sir, with respect, this could be a trap. Maybe, Miller acknowledged, but they could have destroyed us already if they wanted to. And I need answers. 20 minutes later, Miller and Reed stood in the Paradox's teleportation chamber. They had no idea if the Elder ship had compatible technology, but the voice had instructed them to prepare for transfer. Reed fidgeted with her scanner. I've never been this nervous or excited at the same time. Miller smiled slightly. First contact with a mythical species will do that. Before Reed could reply, golden light surrounded them. There was a sensation of movement without moving, and suddenly they stood in a vast circular chamber. The room defied explanation. Its walls seemed to shift between solid and transparent. The floor beneath their feet felt both hard and somehow yielding. And at the chamber's center stood 3 tall figures. The Elders were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their skin shimmered with a pearl-like luster. They had no visible hair, and their eyes were large, solid orbs of deep blue. They wore simple robes that flowed like liquid. Welcome, spoke the tallest Elder. Its voice had no discernible gender. "I am keeper of memory." Miller stepped forward. "Thank you for your invitation and for repairing our ship." The elder inclined its head. "The damage was our responsibility, in a way. You used knowledge that was not meant to be rediscovered so soon." Reed couldn't contain herself. "You know about our reality distortion technology." The second elder spoke. "It is not your technology, human scientist. It is the original science, knowledge that existed before the current order of the galaxy." The third elder waved a hand, and the chamber transformed. Suddenly, they stood in what appeared to be space itself, with stars and galaxies surrounding them. "Long ago," the keeper of memory explained, "the first civilizations understood that reality is fluid. What you call laws of physics are merely the most common arrangements of possibility." Images appeared around them, ancient ships that bent and twisted in impossible ways, worlds being reshaped by technology, stars being moved like game pieces. "This knowledge gave power beyond imagining," continued the keeper, "and led to war beyond comprehension. The beautiful images were replaced by scenes of destruction, planets shattering, entire star systems being consumed by strange energies." Miller watched in horror. "What happened?" "The universe nearly ended," said the second elder. "To prevent total destruction, we and the other surviving species agreed to impose order. We established fixed physical laws and locked away the knowledge of how to change them." Reed's scientific mind raced with implications. "You're saying you deliberately limited how the universe works?" "That's necessary," the third elder finished. "For billions of years, species have evolved in this simplified universe. They built civilizations based on consistent physical laws. The Galactic Council's entire foundation relies on this consistency." The keeper of memory turned to face them directly. "And then humans came along. Your species thinks differently. You question everything, even reality itself. Your ship," said the second elder, "has accidentally rediscovered fragments of the original science. The way you bend what you call reality is primitive but functional. It is like a child finding a forgotten weapon." Miller frowned. "We meant no harm. We built the paradox for exploration, not war. Yet you used it in battle," the third elder observed. "To save lives," Miller countered. "Against something called the Void Swarm. It was consuming the space station." The three elders grew very still. They communicated silently among themselves for a moment. "The Void Swarm," the keeper finally said. "We had hoped it was contained forever." Reed stepped forward. "You know what it is?" "It is a weapon from the ancient war," explained the keeper. "A self-replicating entropy accelerator designed to consume matter and energy. It should have been locked away with the other remnants of that time." "If it has truly returned," said the second elder, "then the seals on the old knowledge are breaking. The simplified physics we imposed is beginning to fail." "And your ship," the third elder added, "with its crude manipulation of reality, may have accelerated the process." Miller felt a chill. "Are you saying we're responsible for this threat?" "No," the keeper replied, "but you may be necessary to stop it. The Council's conventional weapons cannot defeat the swarm. Only the original science can counter it." Reed looked both terrified and fascinated. "You want us to use our ship against this thing, but we barely drove it away. We don't fully understand how our technology works." "We will help you understand," said the keeper. "But first, you must decide. Will you accept this burden? Once you learn the truth, there is no going back. The Council will fear you even more than they already do." Miller straightened his shoulders. "If people are in danger, human or alien, we have a duty to help. That's what Paradox was built for." The elders seemed to approve of his answer. "Then let us begin," said the keeper of memory. "It is time for you to learn what reality truly is." Captain Miller and Dr. Reed returned to the Paradox with minds full of impossible knowledge. The elders had shown them things about reality that contradicted everything modern science believed. They had learned that the universe was not a place of fixed rules but of flexible possibilities. The crew won't believe what we've seen, Reed said as they materialized in the transport room. Miller's face was serious. They'll have to. We have work to do. Lieutenant Walker was waiting for them. Captain, you were gone for 3 hours. We were about to send a rescue team. He looked at their faces. What happened over there? Call the senior staff to the conference room, Miller ordered. We need to talk. 30 minutes later, the command crew sat around the conference table. Miller and Reed had just finished explaining what they had learned from the elders. Let me get this straight, said Bell, rubbing his temples. The laws of physics are actually optional. Not optional, Reed corrected, but more like guidelines that can be adjusted under certain conditions. The elders helped establish the current physical constants to create stability after a devastating war. Dr. Jones shook her head in disbelief, and our reality distortion technology accidentally tapped into this original science. Exactly, Miller confirmed. What we thought was a new human invention was actually a rediscovery of ancient knowledge. Walker leaned forward. And the Void Swarm is a weapon from this ancient war, one that could potentially destroy the galaxy. Yes, Miller said grimly. The elders believe it escaped from a containment system that has held it for millions of years, and it's growing stronger with everything it consumes. But here's the good news, Reed added, activating a holographic display. The elders have upgraded our ship. The display showed the Paradox's systems, now glowing with new energy pathways. Our reality distortion field is 10 times more powerful and more stable, and they've given us blueprints for weapons specifically designed to fight the swarm. Bell whistled. I've been wondering why the engines felt different. The power output is incredible. So what's our mission? Walker asked. Miller stood up and paced the room. The Void Swarm is heading toward the galactic core. If it reaches the heavily populated systems there, billions will die. We need to stop it. Alone? Jones asked incredulously. Shouldn't we contact Earth? Or the Council? Miller shook his head. The elders advised against it. The Council fears our technology. If they learn what we now know about reality, they might panic. Besides, conventional ships would be useless against the swarm. So it's just us, Walker said quietly. Not entirely, Reed interjected. The elders told us about other species who preserve fragments of the original science. Outcasts from the Council who might help us. Where do we find these outcasts? Bell asked. Miller activated a star chart. There's a system near the outer rim. The Nomad Nebula. The Council avoids it because its radiation interferes with standard navigation systems. But not with ours, Reed added with a small smile. Miller nodded. We set course immediately. The elders will delay the Council while we gather allies. 2 days later, the Paradox arrived at the Nomad Nebula. Swirling clouds of purple and green gas obscured normal visibility, but the ship's enhanced sensors cut through the interference. I'm detecting artificial structures, Walker reported from his station. Multiple ships, and what appears to be a space station hidden deep in the nebula. Any signs they've noticed us? Miller asked. Hard to tell. There's a lot of energy distortion in this region. Reed studied her readings. Captain, the patterns in this nebula aren't natural. The radiation has been deliberately modified to create a hiding place. Before Miller could respond, a voice came through the communication system. Unidentified vessel, you have entered protected space. Identify yourself or be destroyed. Miller nodded to the communications officer. This is Captain James Miller of the UVS Paradox. We seek the Forgotten Ones. There was a long pause. How do you know that name? The voice finally asked. The elders sent us, Miller replied. Another pause, then, hold position. Escorts are coming. Minutes later, 3 small ships emerged from the nebula. Their design was unlike anything in the Council registry, organic shapes with hulls that seemed to pulse with life. Those ships, Reed whispered, they're using biotechnology combined with reality manipulation, just like the elders described. The escort ships surrounded the paradox and guided it deeper into the nebula. Eventually, a massive space station came into view. It appeared to be built into an asteroid, with structures growing out of the rock like crystal formations. The paradox docked at the station. Miller selected a small team to accompany him: Reed, Walker, and 2 security officers. When they stepped onto the station, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with beings from dozens of species. Some were recognizable, others completely alien. What they all had in common was that they were using technology that should not exist according to Council science. A tall figure approached them. It had 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. "I am Director Vox of the Alliance of the Forgotten. The elders rarely communicate with anyone these days. Why have they sent you to us?" Miller explained about the Void Swarm and what the elders had revealed about the Paradox technology. Vox's skin darkened to a deep blue. "So it has begun. The seals are breaking." "You knew this would happen?" Reed asked. "We have lived outside Council space for generations," Vox replied. "Our ancestors refused to abandon the original science. They were exiled for it, but they passed down warnings about the weapons of the ancient war. Will you help us fight the swarm?" Miller asked directly. Vox studied them carefully. "Humans are new to space, yet you've rediscovered the original science faster than any species in history. Some here will see that as a sign." "A sign of what?" Walker asked. "That the time of simplification is ending," Vox answered. "Come, your ship will need modifications if it's to stand against the swarm." For the next 3 days, the outcasts worked with the Paradox crew, enhancing the ship with their forgotten knowledge. Reed worked alongside alien scientists, absorbing centuries of hidden science. Bell integrated exotic materials into the engine systems. Walker studied weapons that could affect reality itself. On the 4th day, as they prepared to depart, an alarm sounded throughout the station. "Council ships approaching," announced a voice over the station's comm system. Vox rushed to Miller. "How did they find us?" "I don't know," Miller replied honestly. "The elders said they would keep the council distracted." Vox's skin turned a worried gray. "It doesn't matter now. You must leave immediately. We will hold them off." Miller shook his head. "We won't abandon you." "You must," Vox insisted. "The swarm is the greater threat. If you engage the council here, the swarm will grow too powerful to stop." Reed checked her scanner. "Captain, a large council fleet has entered the nebula. At least 20 warships." Miller faced a difficult choice: fight alongside their new allies, or continue their mission to stop the swarm. "We'll draw them away from the station," he decided. "If we can lead them out of the nebula, you'll have time to evacuate." Vox nodded gratefully. "We will send ships to join you against the swarm when we can. Now go." The Paradox departed quickly, its new systems humming with power. As they cleared the station, the Council fleet came into view, impressive warships moving in formation. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. The main screen activated, showing the stern face of Admiral Wren, the Council's military commander. "Captain Miller," Wren said coldly, "you have violated Council law, stolen restricted technology, and now consort with exiles. You are ordered to surrender your ship immediately." Miller stood tall. "Admiral, there's a greater threat approaching." "Silence," Wren interrupted. "Your deceptions end now. Stand down or be destroyed." As Miller prepared to respond, Walker suddenly shouted, "Energy spike! Massive distortion at the edge of the system." All eyes turned to the view screen as space itself seemed to tear open. A dark, roiling mass emerged, the Void Swarm, now 3 times larger than when they had faced it at Teller. "Admiral," Miller said urgently, "that is the real enemy. The swarm will consume your ships and everything else in its path." But it was too late for warnings. The swarm surged forward, engulfing the nearest Council ship in seconds. As the Council fleet turned to face this new threat, Miller knew the real battle was just beginning. Chaos erupted as the Void Swarm tore through the Council fleet. 3 warships vanished in moments, consumed by the dark mass that seemed to grow with each victory. The remaining Council vessels fired desperately, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the swarm, or were absorbed, making it stronger. On the bridge of the Paradox, Captain Miller watched grimly. "Admiral Wren," he said, reopening the communication channel, "your weapons won't work against the swarm. Let us help you." Admiral Wren's face appeared on screen, his earlier arrogance replaced by fear. "What is this abomination?" "A weapon from an ancient war," Miller explained quickly. "It consumes matter and energy. Conventional weapons just make it stronger." Another Council ship disappeared into the darkness. Wren's face hardened. "What do you propose, Captain?" "My ship has been modified to fight the swarm. Get your remaining vessels behind us. We'll create a path for retreat." Wren hesitated, clearly torn between pride and survival. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, but this changes nothing regarding your violations." Miller turned to his crew as the communication ended. "Battle stations. Dr. Reed, prepare the reality distortion field for combat configuration." Reed's hands flew over her console. "The new modifications from the Outcasts should let us create localized reality bubbles. We can trap portions of the swarm and change the physics inside those bubbles." "And the main weapon?" Miller asked. Walker responded, "Charged and ready. But we only have enough power for one shot." Miller nodded. "We'll save it for when we need it most." "Bell, how are the engines?" "The new configurations are holding," Bell reported from engineering. "But I've never seen power readings like this. We're bending a lot of rules here, Captain." "That's the idea," Miller said with grim determination. "Let's show this thing what happens when you threaten our galaxy." The Paradox moved forward, positioning itself between the retreating Council ships and the advancing swarm. The dark entity seemed to sense the different nature of the human vessel and focused its attention on this new threat. "It's coming for us," Walker reported. "Good," Miller replied. "Reed, activate the distortion bubbles." Reed pressed a sequence of controls. Bubbles deployed. Around the Paradox, 5 spheres of warped space appeared, each with different properties. As tendrils of the swarm entered these bubbles, strange things happened. In one bubble, the darkness solidified into crystal. In another, it dissolved into harmless light. In a third, it froze in place, unable to move. "It's working," Walker exclaimed. But their victory was short-lived. The main body of the swarm adjusted quickly, avoiding the bubbles and continuing its advance. "It's learning," Reed warned. "The bubbles won't work twice on the same section." Miller gripped the arms of his command chair. Bell pushed the engines to maximum. Walker, fire phase disruptors. The Paradox surged forward, weapons blazing. The phase disruptors, technology provided by the Outcasts, fired energy that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Where they struck, the swarm recoiled, unable to adapt to something that was and wasn't there at the same time. For several minutes, the battle raged. The Paradox danced around the swarm, striking and retreating, each attack forcing the entity to adjust. But the strain on the ship grew with every maneuver. "Hull integrity failing in sections 3 through 7, Bell reported. "The reality distortion field is putting enormous stress on our structure." A violent shudder ran through the ship as a tendril of darkness struck them directly. "Direct hit to the port engine," Walker shouted. "We're losing power." Miller looked at the tactical display. The Council ships had escaped to a safe distance, but the swarm was still massive and growing. Their attacks were only slowing it down, not defeating it. "We need a new approach," Miller said. "Reed, what would happen if we detonated our main drive core inside the reality distortion field?" Reed's eyes widened. The explosion would be contained within the field, creating a pocket of completely unstructured reality. It could reset the physical laws within that space too. Well, nothing. Could that destroy the swarm? In theory, yes. But we'd have to be inside the field when it happens. Miller nodded. Can we program the ship to maintain the field around the engine section only, then detach that section? Reed thought for a moment. Yes, but someone would need to stay behind to ensure the field remains stable until detonation. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Miller stood. I'll do it. No, Reed said firmly. It needs to be me. I'm the only one who fully understands how the field works with the modifications. You need to command the rest of the ship to safety. Before Miller could argue, the ship rocked with another hit. We're out of time, Walker warned. The swarm is surrounding us. Miller looked at Reed, seeing the determination in her eyes. He knew she was right. Begin evacuation of all non-essential personnel to the forward section, he ordered. Prepare for emergency separation. As the crew rushed to comply, Miller turned to Reed. You're sure about this? She nodded. The elders showed us that reality is more flexible than we ever imagined. Maybe that applies to life and death too. She managed a small smile. Besides, someone needs to tell Earth about all this. Minutes later, the Paradox had been evacuated. Only Reed remained in the engine section, surrounded by the humming reality distortion generators. The rest of the crew, including Miller, were in the forward section, ready to separate. All personnel secure, Walker reported. Separation mechanism charge. Miller opened a final communication to Reed. Emma. Her face appeared on screen. It's been an honor, James. Now get our people home. Miller nodded, emotion tightening his throat. Initiate separation. With a series of loud clangs, the Paradox split in two. The forward section, resembling a large shuttle, moved quickly away. The engine section, still containing the reality distortion field generators and the main drive, drifted toward the heart of the swarm. From the command console of the escape craft, Miller watched as Reed guided the engine section deeper into the darkness. She's reached the center, Walker said quietly. Reed's voice came through, broken by static. Field is stable. Drive core overload in 10 seconds. Good luck, Paradox. The next moments seemed to stretch into eternity. Then, suddenly, a blinding flash erupted where the engine section had been. But instead of expanding outward like a normal explosion, the light collapsed inward, creating a perfect sphere of nothing. The sphere expanded rapidly, engulfing the void swarm. Where the sphere passed, the darkness simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not transformed, just gone, as if it had never been there. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the sphere collapsed back to a single point and vanished. What just happened? Walker asked, staring at the now empty space. Miller checked the sensors. The swarm is gone, completely. A console beeped. Captain, the communications officer said with surprise, we're receiving a transmission. It's Dr. Reed. Miller jumped to his feet. Put it through. The view screen flickered, showing Reed inside what appeared to be a small escape pod. She looked as surprised as they were. I don't understand, she said. The pod ejected automatically just before detonation. But the odds of surviving that. The elders, Miller realized. They must have added more modifications than they told us. Before they could celebrate further, multiple council ships approached, led by Admiral Wren's flagship. Captain Miller, Wren's voice came through. What did we just witness? Miller straightened his uniform. The defeat of the greatest threat this galaxy has faced in millions of years. Admiral. There was a long pause before Wren spoke again. The council will want explanations. About everything. They'll get them, Miller promised. But they need to understand that the universe is changing. The old rules, their rules, won't be enough anymore. As the rescue pod carrying Reed was recovered and the remains of the Paradox were surrounded by council ships, Miller knew that nothing would be the same again. Humans had not just bent the laws of physics, they had helped reshape the future of the galaxy. In the distance, unseen by human or council sensors, the elder ship watched. The experiment had succeeded better than they had hoped. Humans had not only mastered fragments of the original science, but had used it wisely. Perhaps it was finally time for the simplified universe to evolve once more. The human warship had defied every law, and in doing so, had begun to write new ones.